and reviewed his tour of duty in Nairobi. Take a look.
My name is Nicolas Nyon. I'm the ambassador of Belgium to Kenya. I've been ambassador here since 2017, and actually in a month I'll be taking off to go back to my country after 4 years in Kenya.
Balozi, kindly introduce Belgium to Kenyans. What interesting things should they know?
It's a pretty small country of the size of the Tana River County. It's a federal country with a high degree of devolution, which is tucked between France, Germany, and the Netherlands. It's also the capital of Europe, the European Union, because that's where you have the main institution of the European Union, the Commission, the Council, and I would say that it's a country normally that is known for its, the diversity of its beers, its very good chocolate, and I'm sure that the Kenyans know very well our national football team, the Red Devils, for which Origi, for example, has been teaming up. So I think that's the way I would summarize in a few words.
During your tour of duty, how have been the relations been? Kindly let us engage about the strengths and the weaknesses of these relations.
The relations started, of course, in 1963, like many nations, celebrating the independence of Kenya. In the past, these relations have been based mainly on development cooperation. We had a big unit of development cooperation here, but now Kenya is much richer. It's a middle-income country, and so we center our relation nowadays on trade, on state-to-state loans that we provide to Kenya, so that Belgian companies can here provide services of build infrastructures of quality in Kenya. And we also still have a pretty important cooperation in terms of education, where universities in Belgium pool together to help a network of Kenyan universities. Primarily it was Moi University and then a network of other universities. The loans we provide to the Treasury imply a gift of 30 or 35% for high quality services, like I would like to take an example like the medical waste treatment machines that recently have been provided to hospitals in Kenya, and which are, of course, very crucial in time of COVID. We have also some companies providing, the treatment and distribution of water, which is absolutely necessary. So what I want to say to the Wananchi is that if the service you receive is basic, is very important, is crucial, and if you have to repay a loan for a very long time, but at a minimal, if the refund is minimal, it's a good deal. It's just like for myself in Belgium, when I buy myself an apartment, it's something important, and on the long term, it's worth to take a loan. If the conditions are bad, and sometimes, the deals are not that good, I understand one and she is asking himself or herself question about it.
Balozi, you've talked of loans, and definitely I'm pretty sure that loans, when you talk of loans, is a very controversial issue in Kenya. And of course, Belgium government has been granting loans to the Kenyan government. And this is an issue that has brought a lot of uproar when it comes to citizens, Kenyan citizens' government engagement, and you've been able to follow. Do you think that the Kenyan government has been able to utilize the loans that the Belgian government has been granting, the Kenyan government?
The government of Kenya and the Treasury has been always satisfied with the service infrastructures that we've been providing, with the flexibility and the pragmatism of the Belgian authorities to tailor solutions for the counties, for the public institutions. We've always been approached by the Kenyan authorities to provide more, but of course there is always a limit to what Kenya can pay and repay, and it's normal that the Minister for Treasury, the CS for Treasury, is saying there are limits to the things we can do. We have to pace ourselves. You cannot provide infrastructure everywhere in the country just in the lapse of a few years. This is a very long-term endeavor.
Balozi, talking of state-to-state engagement between Kenya and Belgium, now the issue brings us to key developmental cooperation between the two states. Kindly engage more about this cooperation. Any key highlights?
My job has been primarily devoted to what the services infrastructures that Belgium Belgian companies can provide to Kenya. But I would like to mention that during my tenure, we had two important visits to Kenya, high-profile visits, and which embody a bit those relations. The first one was the visit in 2018 by Alexander De Croo. Alexander De Croo is today our Prime Minister, and at the time he was Minister for Development Cooperation and for digitalization. Actually, he came here with a number of startups from Belgium to discover in Nairobi what you call the Silicon Savannah. And all these universes of very creative startups of Kenya who develop software, who develops hardwares, and who developed solutions based on digitalization. So it was a really great encounter between Belgians and Kenyans, and show to one another the things they can realize based in the realm of the digital world. And I can say that for my minister, it was really an eye-opening experience to see how creative Kenyans can be. And they somehow in the region they're leading the way, and the young generation is really bringing added value to the economy of Kenya. So that was the first a first highlight. The second highlight was the visit of Her Majesty Queen Mathilde, who came as UNICEF ambassador, and she came here with her daughter to visit what Kenya is doing and UNICEF are doing in terms of education for young people.
Is there any untapped areas between Belgium and Kenya?
Well, I think that, of course, I think for Kenya, the challenge is always how much more trade can I create with foreign countries. For example, we export around, if I'm not mistaken, 11 billion shillings every year to Kenya, and Kenya is exporting to Belgium for 8 billion of shillings. So there is a difference. We export more to Kenya than Kenya is exporting. And I think this is precisely what President Kenyatta wants to achieve. You've heard about the famous economic partnership agreement, which has been signed for a long time ago between the European Union and the Eastern African Community. You know that some countries in the Eastern African Community were a bit reluctant maybe to go to the next phase, and Kenya felt, I want to move forward, and so we find a solution, and the EAC found a solution so that Kenya actually can see the implementation of this agreement and can preserve, the trade opportunities with the European Union. So I think where it's untapped is how much more trade can Kenya do with the members of the European Union, with Belgium?
Balozi, what is Belgium's leading export in Kenya and vice versa?
When you look at the statistics, it's nothing striking, because the main thing we export to countries are always pharmaceuticals, electric or electronic equipment, food, processed food, actually. So these are generally the main type of export that we export to many countries in the world.
Talking of pharmaceutical, you bring me to the issue of COVID-19 pandemic. How has the situation been in Belgium? Aren't you a pharmaceutical hub?
Today, we are proceeding to the vaccination of people in Belgium, going by, you have like risk categories. We start with the eldest people, and it's proceeding smoothly. But what people should know, for example, in Kenya, that in Belgium you don't have the choice of a vaccine. Depending on the availability, people receive an invitation. It's for free, but they don't have the choice of the vaccine. Of course, these vaccines have to be, of course, approved by the European authorities to make sure they are safe. But yeah, so we progressing. Summer is coming to Belgium. People are desperate, to go on vacation. But I think we'll still have to be careful for a while. It's not because you're vaccinated, as you know, that you're completely safe, or that you don't transport the virus and you cannot contaminate others. There are still a lot of things we don't know, so we still have to remain very careful.
What are some of the key opportunities for either Belgians who wishes to come to Kenya or Kenyans who wishes to go to Belgium?
We have a system of grants, scholarships, for those who want to study in Belgium, because in Belgium, despite the fact that two main languages are French and Dutch, there are curriculums which have been developed in English for students coming from overseas and who want to do a master or doctorate thesis. Of course, most of these grants are geared to offer masters, and in only in certain areas, which are very much geared to science, for example. For the Belgians, I think, like many countries in Africa, there are still a lot of things to be done, right? But it requires, for those who want to come to Kenya and set up their own business, to do something, to be like as entrepreneurial, if not more entrepreneurial than the Kenyans, right? And to get to know the country, understand that the context in which they will be working here is completely different. So there are opportunities for young people who want to set up something here, but it requires a lot of dynamism and skills.
Balozi, you are completing your tour of duty in Nairobi as an ambassador. What have you come to appreciate most? I'm
afraid I'm not going to be very original, and I know many of my colleagues would say what I'm about to say somehow. I think the first thing is, of course, the nature in Kenya, which is absolutely incredible. And Kenya is known for that, actually, abroad. You made a name for yourself because of the natures, the wildlife that you have here. Even around in this house, with this big garden, I see things that I will never see, like colobus monkeys in my own garden, right? It's just incredible. And I was blessed because I could make it. I went to Lenana Peak. I could go to Mount Kenya and climb up there, and it will be certainly, one of the biggest moments in my life. Of course, the weather, which is in Nairobi, I would say, because there are different parts of Kenya. The weather in Nairobi is absolutely incredible. And the people of Kenya were very warm, very welcoming, which I'm always amazed by the fact they are all trilingual. They have to speak their own mother tongue, Kiswahili, English and some speak other languages. So this is what I will, of course, remember. I have to say that, and maybe a fewer colleagues will say that, but I have a weak spot for the CBD of Nairobi. I think Nairobi is actually a very nice city.
Balozi, describe Kenya in a few words.
Kenya is a democracy. Not a perfect democracy, but nobody's perfect. You know, Belgian democracy is not perfect. It's important in the region. Democracy, which is an anchor in this region of the Horn of Africa, which is evolving and moving and changing. We are in challenging times, and you know why. And for that reason, and that's another word I would add, Kenya is, for that reason and for the rest, a strategic partner of the European Union. This is an ally, it's a country which is an anchor of stability in that region, and with which we want really to develop further our relations.
Balozi, you live in a magnificent house, very beautiful, well decorated. And in a month's time, you're going to vacate this huge building. And I understand it has a very interesting story. Kindly talk to us, tell us something about this house.
Well, this house, looks like a little palace. And indeed, it was built in 1954 by a Frenchman who came here in the 1920s, 30s, inherited a coffee plantation. And this man called, his name was Jean-Pierre Pichot, loved art, wanted to have a really lavish French-style house that he modeled on the Grand Trianon, which is a palace near Paris. And he organized a lot of parties here. He couldn't really spend spare money. You know, he was just throwing money here and there. So when the coffee prices went down, he was completely bankrupt. You know, it's almost like a novel. He sold it to a British gentleman, Malin Sorsby, who actually had a vision. He wanted to create a museum of painting here, some sort of national gallery of Kenya. And he created, in the end, his own gallery, the Sorsby Gallery, between 1961 and 64. Then you have the independence of Kenya. Malin Sorsby is not so much interested anymore in his gallery. And you have an aristocrat from Belgium, who's our second ambassador to Belgium, Mr. Eugène Rietweger the Moor. And he comes here and he said, wow, this is fantastic, I want to buy it. And so he negotiates for a year with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs back in Brussels. And he says, this is the thing we should have, right? And he's authorized to buy it in 1966. And since then, there has been 14 ambassadors who lived here. I want to mention, I would say it's a magnificent house, but it's not, of course, a house to enjoy just for myself. The fact, actually, that we bought it in 1960 is also because we wanted to represent Belgium in a very nice way. It's an instrument. It's a way to enhance the prestige of our country. A lot of people like to come here to participate in official functions. When we have official visits, the Queen was here. When ministers can meet here, we organize the King's Day every 15th of November. So it's a wonderful setting to bring people together, to bring the Kenyans and to bring the Belgians together.
Thank you, Balozi, for gracing this episode of The Diplomat. And of course, we